Welcome to another video from ExplainingComputers.com. This time it's another of our twice yearly channel updates. And for me personally, it's a very special update as it marks 10 years of uploading an Explaining Computers video every single Sunday. I've actually been uploading videos to this channel since March 2008. But it was back in December 2015 when I announced to you I was leaving my job in the University of Nottingham to go freelance and intended to post a video on this channel every week. And here we are, 10 years later, it's happened. I haven't missed a Sunday since December 2015. And more broadly, my freelance career has been a success. So, what are we going to talk about in this momentous video? Well, for a start, I want to look back at what's been going on this channel, but also more broadly in the world of computing, not just in the past year, but for once in the past decade. And then I also want to say a few things about the YouTube platform. And then finally, we will look ahead to what's likely to be coming up on this channel and in the world of computing in 2026. So, what's been going on in the past 12 months? Well, on this channel we've had videos on topics including SD cards, UFS modules, not one but two new Raspberry Pi keyboard computers, a PC build, the Cinepi Raspberry Pi Cinema camera, and new ARM and RISC-V single board computers. And along the way there have been lots of operating system videos, including 5 Linux distro reviews. Oh, and you've also seen me switch to 5G broadband, which by the way is still going very well indeed. And I also recently on the channel built this, my first cyberdeck. I'm very pleased with this cyberdeck. Anyway, more broadly in the world of computing, there have been 3 things that have both really interested me and frustrated me across 2025. And the first of these has been the continued rise of AI, although as this is a long-term trend, I'm going to talk about this in the next part of the video. So let's move on to the second thing that's really dominated my thinking and lots of things going on this channel this year, which has been the end of support for Windows 10. And at the start of this year, myself and many other people thought that sometime in 2025, probably in the last quarter, we would see the launch of Windows 12. But earlier in the year, Microsoft said it isn't going to happen. 2025 is going to be the year of the Windows 11 refresh. Although, as we get towards the end of 2025, we've still got something like 40% of Windows users still running Windows 10. And that's a strange situation. And we've never had a situation quite like this before. People keep saying to me, oh Chris, it's exactly the same as what happened with the end of support for Windows XP or Windows 7. It isn't, and for 2 reasons. Firstly, we've never had the end of support for a version of Windows before where it has left hundreds of millions of computers not able to officially or easily run the next version of Windows. And secondly, we've never before had consumer ESUs that are allowing loads and loads of people, or there's 40% of people, a reasonable proportion of them anyway, to continue to run Windows 10 with security updates. So they're running a non-supported operating system from Microsoft, but it has got security updates to keep it safe. This is a weird situation. And it inevitably had broader consequences. Not everyone has gone with the ESU route. Some people have gone to Linux. Linux has clearly had a boost from this. I wouldn't for a second say it's been the year of Linux. I've never said on this channel it's the year of Linux. Linux will always be a minority desktop operating system, but it's now risen to about 3% of desktop operating system use, not just by web statistics, but also by things like number of Steam gamers using Linux is now about 3%, which is it's a small number, but a big increase. I've seen on this channel the interest in Linux content dramatically increase in September and October, not just distro reviews, but my Linux guides and videos on things like dual booting, that type of stuff. Clearly, a lot of people have got into Linux in 2025. We had the launch of Zorin OS 18 with over 300,000 downloads in the first week. Something is going on there. And Microsoft, I still don't think are helping themselves in this battle. because, for example, they are now really trying very hard to stop people having a local account in Windows 11. And so Windows is still in a problematic area. Microsoft doesn't seem to be addressing the problem that for many people, Windows is now something that they tolerate rather than desire. And that's not a good situation to be in with any product or service. And long term, I think there are implications of that. And clearly, the end of support for Windows 10 and the implications of that are going to rumble on into 2026, which is not, I'm sure, what Microsoft intended. Moving on, the third thing that has really caught my attention this year has been the continuing decline of Intel, which admittedly has been going on for quite a long while, but it seems to have accelerated a bit in 2025. And this year, not least, we've seen both Nvidia and the US government investing in Intel. Now, absolutely, Intel remains a very important, a critical company in the computing industry, with the majority of desktop and laptop and server computers having an Intel processor inside. But AMD continues to take market share from Intel, and for a few years now, all new Apple computers have had an ARM processor. Since the launch of Copilot Plus PCs in mid-2024, an increasing minority of new Windows laptops have also had an ARM processor. And we've got both Google and Amazon increasingly transitioning to ARM processors in their servers, their own ARM processors in their servers, in their data centers. And of course, we have got the rise potentially of RISC-V in the server and desktop and the mobile marketplace. And so there is clearly something going on. The situation is very interesting in the chip marketplace at the moment. And because of that, I'm working on a video all about the situation that's currently going on with Intel and Nvidia and ARM and AMD, and that will be here on the channel very soon. Right, shall we now address a very large question, which is what has been going on in the past 10 years? That's a big question, isn't it? And at least on this channel I can answer that reasonably clearly, because we've had over 500 videos in that time on all kinds of topics, ranging from explaining PCIe slots to media formats, scores of SBC episodes, a visit to the National Museum of Computing at Bletchley Park here in the UK, several PC builds, and the channel has received both a silver and a gold play button. But what about more broadly in the world of computing? Clearly lots has gone on in the past 10 years, but there are three things that I've been struck by over the past decade, particularly I suppose related to things going on in this channel. And the first of these has been the rise and then relative decline of ARM SBCs in the consumer marketplace. Only a few days before this channel went weekly in December 2015, the Raspberry Pi Zero was launched with a price tag of $5. And a couple of months later, we had the arrival of the Raspberry Pi 3. Building on the success of earlier Pi models, these and competitor ARM SBCs transformed what home computing enthusiasts could afford, learn and achieve. At the time, an entry-level x86 PC cost 10 times more than a $35 Raspberry Pi. But times have changed, with entry-level mini PCs now priced in roughly the same bracket as many Raspberry Pi or other ARM SBCs once the latter are equipped with an SSD, power supply and case. And so, for home users who don't require GPIO functionality, a mini PC is now often a more attractive proposition than an ARM single-board computer. And this is not to say I don't still personally very much like Raspberry Pis. I do. I like my Raspberry Pi 5 and the 4 and the 3 and the Zeros and the keyboard computers. These are all fantastic bits of hardware. But we have to accept that Raspberry Pis and other ARM SBCs are now at a very different position in the computing marketplace than they were 10 years ago. And that inevitably has implications for the content I make on this channel. Related, over the past decade, fewer and fewer people have been purchasing or building their own tower desktop PC. And whilst I know that a lot of hardcore gamers and content creators, myself included, do still favour a modular tower computer, for most people, a mini PC, laptop, tablet or phone now provide all the computing power they require. And so, both in business and in the home, users of tower computers are now very much in a shrinking minority. Beyond shrinking and less upgradable hardware form factors, the third big trend I've been following quite closely over the past decade has been the rise of AI. I wrote about this in my 2017 book Digital Genesis, in which I suggested the period of time from about 2000 to 2020 was the network computing age, a period of time where the dominant focus in computing was communication. And I then suggested that we would start to transition around 2020 to a new period of time which I called the cognitive computing age, in which any digital technology would have the potential to possess or remotely access some form of AI. Clearly, my 2017 prediction was accurate. However, what I and many others in the computing industry 5, 10, 15, 20 years ago didn't really anticipate is the extent to which we'd start to use artificial neural networks not just for prediction but for generation. In other words, the previous prevailing logic was we would use artificial neural networks to take loads of unstructured data and turn it into structured data. So, for example, we would take lots of pictures or video of flowers and we would feed them to an artificial neural network as training data, and it would learn what different types of flowers were, and you could therefore show it in the future other images or video it hadn't seen before, and it could go based on what I've established as patterns of connections previously. I could go, this is a picture of a whatever. It's taking unstructured data to structured. And that's a very useful thing to be able to do. It enables you to do things like improve logistics, to improve, say, medical diagnosis by getting a system to learn from lots of medical scans and then be able to look at scans and work out what thing people got wrong with them. It enables you to do things like natural language processing, building chatbots, and it enables you to build autonomous robots and autonomous vehicles, self-driving cars. If you're going to have a car driving itself or a robot working alongside people, it has to be able to take data from sensors, often visual sensors and other sensors, and to make sense of that data based on what it's learned previously to go, well, if this is happening, that's probably what's going on. I can do this to work safely alongside people. And of course, all that is happening. That's a big part of the AI revolution. But we're also doing it the other way around. Rather than saying, here's lots and lots of pictures of flowers, learn from them, and then tell me what this is when I show you another picture of a flower, we're going, I'm going to write down over here, can I have an orange flower, please? And it'll chuck out from that structured thing, that bit of prompt engineering, it'll chuck out a picture of an orange flower. And that can be useful. For example, if you want to write computer code, you can say, write me a program that does this, and it'll chuck something out, and it might be roughly right, and you can tweak it. That's useful. But I do worry we're doing too much of this. We are becoming obsessed with taking prompt engineering to its nth degree and producing video and audio and pictures and all kinds of stuff, which isn't necessarily of a quality, if you see what I mean. In the past 20 years, it is certainly the case that some people have become obsessed with social media in quite a negative way. It's been very, very bad for their mental health. And I worry that what we're doing now with generative AI is going to be bad for the human condition. We are the dominant species on this planet because we use our brains for intelligence, to do things, for creative processes, for mental activities. And by saying, it's okay, we've just got generative AI to do it for us now, to have the ideas to produce the creative works, I don't think that's a good thing. I find it extraordinary. There are now people who use AI apparently to write their emails. And then they send these emails to other human beings who get them filtered by AI, who use AI to summarize them, so they're going to read them all anyway. And then they use AI to write the replies, and so it continues. What are we doing? This is absolutely crazy. And I could talk for a long while on this, but I won't. Maybe I'll do a whole video on it in the future. I don't know. But I will close this section with just one thought, which is to say that for years, many people worried about computing, artificial intelligence getting more intelligent than people. I know that's a loaded term, but more intelligent than people and taking over the world, the classic science fiction concern. I've never worried about that scenario for reasons I've discussed in other videos elsewhere. But what I do worry about is that we will choose to make ourselves more and more dumb by ceasing to engage in the mental and creative processes that stimulate our brains, that make us human. And as we do that, we'll get dumber and dumber rather than the machines getting more intelligent, although both will happen together. And that's not good for us. AI has enormous potential to help us save resources, do things more efficiently, to become more prosperous, to become happier in many ways. But that's not the direction of travel we see in the artificial intelligence community. I think a lot of it at the moment. And that does worry me. And so, we will keep an eye on things, I guess, and see where AI will take us in the future. Greetings. Here we are outside in the park, where I want to say something about YouTube itself. I've now been on this platform nearly 18 years. I've been earning most of my living here for a decade, so there must be something I can pass on in terms of useful reflection. So I've been thinking about this, and to be honest, it comes down to just two basic points. Firstly, people often ask me, what is the trick to success on YouTube? And as we all know, there's lots of channels and people who can give you all kinds of magic tricks and advice about making things work here. But I actually think across the past 18 years, it hasn't really changed. YouTube still fundamentally rewards people who post regular, high quality, original content that consistently targets the same audience. And that's all there is to it, really. YouTube, like so many things in life, rewards consistent effort. As you'll know, if you've watched some of my recent videos over on the Christopher Barnett YouTube channel, where I talked about my early animation career and television career, I've always wanted to be a filmmaker, not an influencer. That's always given me a big focus on content. And I still think if you want to be successful on YouTube, the real trick is to focus on content, not on, how shall I put it, sort of the promotion of the individual as a personality. You focus on the content and everything else follows that. The second thing I want to say is that I'm very grateful that YouTube exists and continues to exist in this format. I'm very thankful to YouTube. I find it amazing I've been able to earn my living on this platform for so long. Yes, there are things occasionally I don't like. I moan about bits of the interface. I don't like shorts. I'm not keen on the AI stuff going on, as you can guess from the last part of the video. But fundamentally, it has been an enormous privilege to be able to earn my living on this platform for 10 years and to hopefully continue to do so. So I'd like to say thank you to YouTube. Thanks for allowing me to live the lifestyle I live and make the content I make. And with that, let's move on to what is coming soon. So, what's coming up on the channel in 2026? Well, the key thing to say is that I'm planning for things to continue as they are, with a video every Sunday. Clearly, 10 years of weekly uploads is a milestone. I won't be doing it forever, but I've no plans to stop just yet. Right now, the channel is nice and stable. Views have been nice and consistent for the past few years now. They were dropping a few years ago, but they've been nice and stable for a while. And channel members also help out very much to keep this channel financially viable. So thanks to all channel members, and I hope you continue to enjoy the weekly updates and 4 weekly members-only videos. In terms of specific content, I think next year we'll have a lot going on in the world of operating systems. I think we'll see the launch of Windows 12. That'll be interesting to take a look at. And we should, in theory, have the end of sort of consumer ESUs for Windows 10. So that saga will continue. In terms of Linux, we will have Ubuntu 26.04 launching in April, and I'm sure after that Linux Mint 23 sometime in the middle of the year. In terms of other things, in terms of hardware for example, I think we may well see a Raspberry Pi 6 in 2026, fingers crossed, and I think we're going to get RVA23 compatible RISC-V boards, or in other words, the first RISC-V hardware running that standard. It means all the different boards can run the same operating systems and applications. That's going to be good news for end-user RISC-V development. More broadly, I will continue with projects. I've got various projects planned. I won't reveal what they are here because people might build them before me. There will be builds on the channel. I don't know quite what type of computers I'll be building. Will it be desktop stuff? Will it be smaller stuff? Will it be more cyberdeck stuff? I don't know yet. That's a bit in flux given what I was talking about earlier. We will have my 10th quantum computing annual update. See where we are with quantum computing after a decade. That'll be interesting to look back on. And of course there'll be the standard, what I call standard Explaining Computers guides on any topic I think needs explaining in the world of computing. But now that's it for another video. If you've enjoyed what you've seen here, please press that like button. If you haven't subscribed, please subscribe. And I hope to talk to you again very soon.